Hello, everyone. My name is Anna, and this is CS32 interview track prep. So we're going to get started really soon. Don't worry if you have never been to an interview. This is why we have this. This session will be doing introductions in Big O. And don't worry if you don't know Big O, we'll be going over it. Okay, so let's move along. If you want the attendance code, make sure to go to the membership portal and type in I need a job. So I'll give you guys like about 30 seconds, and you guys should be able to do this until 8:45. This event will go to 8:30, so we have a little bit of a leeway time just in case. Sounds good. Okay. And then let's go into the next slide. I think that's enough time. And if anyone needs it after, we can also post it in the chat. So this is the slides link. I will also drop it in the, thank you, Arjun. I'll also drop it in the chat. Arjun will drop it in the chat, and then you guys can follow along. Don't worry, you guys can look ahead, but there's no answers. So if you want, you can just follow along. Okay. Again, my name is Anna. I'm a third-year CS major. I'll be working at Microsoft this summer, and then I have done minimal LeetCode, but I think I have a pretty good grasp on the interview processes for undergrads.
Hey everyone, my name is Bill. I'm a third-year CS major. You may remember me from fall quarter, where I co-led the interview track for ICPC. This quarter, I'm actually taking a quarter off school to intern at Instagram, and I've done a bit more LeetCode, but not as much as you would have thought.
Hi guys, I'm Katie. I'm a second-year math and comm major. Well, I am sort of the bad example that you don't want to follow. I didn't do LeetCode and I didn't practice. Wait, my technical interview, I can tell you that you shouldn't do that. So listen carefully to the things that we're going to talk about.
Hi guys, I'm Sarthak and I'm a second-year CS major, and I am interviewing right now. So if you guys have any questions about interviewing as a first or second year, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Arjun. I'm a fourth-year CS major. I like gardening and all of the associated stuff that comes with that. I've also done a whole bunch of interviews, and the first one I did, I got a basic CS32 question and I completely flubbed it, but I was super confident. So CS32 is super helpful for interviews. What we're about to do is also helpful, and I hope you have a great time.
Thank you, everybody. And then let's jump straight in. So before we go over what is an interview, a technical interview, I'm going to be launching a small poll for people who have already, we want to gauge if people have already done it. And so right now we can see live process of how many people, oh, okay, wow, that's a lot of zeros, great. Sounds good. 26 out of 29 voted. Okay, I think that's plenty. Great. And then we would like to ask you another question. And the question would be, what year are you guys? Okay, I should have known. It's a lot of freshmen. Okay. I think that's good. That's good. Okay, so we should be able, okay, so you guys should be able to see how many freshmen there are. So don't worry. This is, you think this is like, oh, everybody else is doing it. Everybody's like, so much more in the game than me. Don't worry. Most of the people are freshmen here. And I mean, this is for CS32 people, so do not fret. I don't know if we can look at the results from the poll, the first poll. which also very majority, like 9% of people have, 80% of people have not completed any technical interviews, and 20% only have 1 to 3. So regardless if you are a freshman, sophomore, or an upperclassman, I hope you will find some aspects of this workshop helpful. Okay, let's jump straight in. What is a technical interview? So obviously you guys always heard that term jumping around when we do career fairs. So there's different forms. So we have online assessments, technical phone screens, as well as in-person virtual on-site. So these are usually used by tech companies to assess, the candidates' like adequacy in type of data structures and algorithms, or just like another skill set they want to be testing. As you can see here, it's not only to SWE, we also have data scientists and also UI UX design also sometimes needs these soft skills, these hard skills, sorry. I don't know why I said soft skills. Okay, so what is asked during a technical interview? So as you can see from our bubble on the right, this picture pretty much sums up what you should be focusing on, which is your CS32 class. Most of the times you will be trying to do data structures and try to code them up. So make sure you do know your CS32 knowledge when you get, to your interviewing sessions. Don't fret if you're like, you just come out of CS31, you're like, oh my God, I didn't do that well. It's okay. If you do well in CS32, you should be fine. You'll be learning about time and space complexities later on the course, and a lot more in CS180. If you do not know what time and space complexity is, don't worry, you'll be learning this in CS32 later. All in all, this just shows you that these LeetCode questions and these technical interview questions will mostly be testing your knowledge on the structures and algorithms. Okay, so the process, as you can see, it's quite elaborate in my opinion. So we have 4 ways to get started in your recruiter, your process for internships and full-time. You have your referral, you have your cold email, career fair, and apply online. So in my opinion, I think referral and career fair is the way to go. It is very hard to stand out with a cold email or applying online, unless you are very good at parsing their being parsed by their algorithm, basically. So I highly recommend career fairs from henceforth. We do have one in winter. We did have UCLA has one annually at fall, and I think that's super helpful. Although you will not get to talk to someone face to face, I guess you get to talk to them screen to screen, which is still better than applying online. And afterwards, we're going to go to recruiter contact, and you can either begin an online assessment, phone screen, or on-site interview. Sometimes you won't even get a recruiter. It would just be an automated computer that will tell you to take the online assessment before any further contact, which has been many companies I've interviewed with. But regardless, these are the 3 methods you will be mostly encountering for sure. It's not going to be like recruiter contacting you straight to get an offer. It doesn't happen. So online assessment, like what we just said, it's going to be probably an hour to 2 hours of just you getting thrown with questions, usually LeetCode, and they're usually a HackerRank, or I forgot the other method, other website that Facebook uses off the top of my head, sorry. But so that would be that. And then you would get an online, after your online assessment, you could get a phone screen or go straight to on-site. So any questions about this process, you guys can drop it in the chat, or you can just talk if you are okay with that. Okay, so, after everything, after your on-site interview or your phone screen, we're hoping that you're going to be getting an offer. And let's just not talk about all the rejections you'll be getting. But don't worry, if you do get rejected, just know that it's very common. I have been rejected by 20+ companies, and I still got to Microsoft. And if you are feeling like you're inadequate, or you just feel like you're not being, I guess, like it's kind of like you're deep in the tunnel and you can't see the light, just know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Or if you want to see other people's failure stories, because that sometimes cheers me up, ACM Discord has a nice channel called Celebrate Failure. We can see other people who are, like also struggling to, get an internship or get callbacks. So you're not alone in this game. Okay. So you have your behavioral and you have your technical. So what is a behavioral interview? So behavioral interviews usually just want to test your soft skills. Software engineers, they don't work alone. You're not going to be working alone, coding up an entire like database or like project by yourself. You're going to have to work with other engineers. And they want to know how you're able to. Answering behavioral questions is key to being hired as well as your technical interview skills. So how would you be able to answer these? So commonly they would ask you about your projects, how you were able to overcome difficulties and challenges. You can see here on the left column that those are some of the most common questions that you'll be encountering. And as a freshman, you don't have much prior skills like internship skills or, like job skills. And to really stand out, you will need your project skills, like side projects. And the best way to demonstrate that is being able to talk about it. So make sure if you list, and you should, if you list projects on your resume, be able to talk about all of these points on the left column, or else, then, and not or else, but I guess it just really sticks out if you're able to precisely. People, when I was interviewing for one of the companies I was trying to get recruited last year, after their feedback was that I was able to, demonstrate that I could talk about my project fluently and confidently, which is something they thought was helpful. They also want to check that you didn't just copy this from GitHub, so you don't actually partake in any ownership of this code. So being able to talk about this is also helpful to presenting it as your own project and not something just took. So other than that, any questions? Drop it in the chat as well. So this is from CTCI, which is like the Bible for technical interview. So cracking the coding interview, if you have this book, I highly recommend reading through it. Okay, so how do you prepare for technical interviews? There's no easy answer. I feel like you just have to practice. If you're not good at talking to people, you have to be able to present yourself fluently. You have to be able to talk and converse your ideas. Most of the times, I feel like technical interviews are not how fast you can code up a solution, like, oh, or the optimal solution right from the get-go. It's being able to work out your ideas fluently and, how should I say this? But just being able to communicate effectively is the most important part of this interview. So, if you arrive to the optimal solution a lot later, maybe in like the latter 10 minutes of the interview, but you were able to just like, chug along and tell the interviewer how you struggled and how you came to a better solution. That tells so much more about you than if you were just able to, code it up really quick and then, give a really short description of what you did and not really effectively communicating. So at the end of the day, the more you practice, the better you will understand the questions and the more patterns you can see between LeetCode questions, which is super common. Okay. So we're going to be taking a short break. You can ask any of the 5 officers any questions in the chat, or if you are we're not going to be recording. So feel free to, turn on your camera and just like talk. And then we're also going to be doing breakout rooms. So we're just going to do a short poll and seeing if you're, willing to do breakout rooms and just like talk in general, because we do really like value talking to each other in workshops, because if you're already motivated to come to this, don't you want to be with other motivated, not kids, I was going to say kids, other motivated students who are also willing to improve upon their skills on interview track. So, you'll be helping yourself and others. Okay, well, we got 70%, which is a lot more than I thought. That's good for right now, I guess. We can, Arjun, not Arjun. Let's move on. So the focus of this workshop, like we were talking before, we're going to teach you the skills that are necessary for practicing technical interviews. And then we're going to make you practice using like common interview questions, and hopefully you will be able to scope out patterns and how you should be presenting yourself while being conducted in an interview. And lastly, improve your communication skills by having you explain your thought process to others while problem solving. So I think this is just quintessential. You need to be able to communicate your solutions successfully to others, or else, like Bill said, you don't have a solution. If they think if they think you can't like explain yourself well, they might just be like, maybe you just copied your solution from LeetCode. That's something that you also have to watch out for. So be sure to really communicate effectively on your solution. So yeah. Do I have to be able to solve LeetCode hard? I think this is a question we get every workshop season. So I have interviewed for some of these companies. I haven't interviewed for all of them. Actually, I think, yeah, most of them. I have gotten 3 hards at a technical interview and then 2 in online assessments. So I would say out of like the 100 like questions I've gotten, and I only gotten 5. That's like a pretty low like percentage. So I would not fret, and make sure you do the easy ones first before you even think about doing the hards, because a lot of the times the easies and mediums are built, like the hards are built on the easies and mediums. So if you understand the concept for the easies and the mediums, you'll have a lot easier of a time doing the hards. And it's okay if you don't get the hard ones. Like Google, I'm sure, has like LeetCode hards, but they don't expect you to be able to solve it sometimes. Maybe some interviewers do, but I think most of the times they want to be able to see how you're thinking and how you're coming up with a solution, which is so much more important, because these questions are kind of like, I would say you won't ever see them in a day-to-day basis. It really just tests your problem solving skills in a short amount of time. It's kind of unfair, but it's a process that we have to endure. So let's go on. What language should I code in? So CS30, I guess all the CS courses you'll be taking are in C++, and I think CS30 is in Python actually, but regardless, do whatever you're most comfortable with. So whether it be C++, Swift, Java, Python, anything you're comfortable with would be the best, best language to code in. I highly recommend Python if you're able to pick up Python, just because it's just so, I think the word is Pythonic. It's very elegant. It's very nice. Most of the times, the time, not the time complexity, but like the time trade-off is not significant unless you're doing competitive programming, which is a different story. But I do think a lot of the built-in libraries in Python are very helpful and standardized, so you don't have to, like C++ to like include, like hash map or like set. You don't have to include it all. You can just do it in Python. I'm a little biased, also, sorry. What does everyone else recommend? Just also Python?
I used to like Python, but I think I've warmed up to C++ now, because I think if you learn the standard library, I think there's a lot of very Pythonic things now in modern C++, like with lambdas and with all the cool like standard library stuff. If you learn it all, definitely like a sharper learning curve, but I think there is some very cool stuff as well that makes things a lot faster. And it's a lot different than compared to what you're taught in CS31, 32, which is like old C++. So you might want to do some solo research into what modern C++ looks like.
I've almost forgot to mention, I think this popped up in my head, but some of the, I guess like fintech companies will require you to code in C++. So just watch out, and if you want to, you can also practice in C++. Okay, so we're going to be asking you a short question. I think we already did. I don't know why I said this, but we'll be putting you into breakout rooms real soon. I'll just be giving you this meme just for you to, feel okay before you get put in. So before I send you guys off, I just want to mention some resources that I thought were helpful when I was interviewing. over the summer, I took this course from CodePath, which is, you know, like, it's like a free, not boot camp, but it's just like a free course for, like, you don't have to even be an undergraduate. You can be in high school, you can be in, you know, like working, and you can take these courses to, you know, brush up on your skills for interviewing, as well as learning new development skills such as iOS and Android development. And I guess cybersecurity. Everything is online now, so that's really nice. They used to be sometimes only offered in certain campuses, and UCLA is not one of them. So I think COVID at least helps out in this a little bit, where everything is offered remotely. So do check this out. For my ladies, Rewriting the Code is a organization for women in CS. There are different divisions for women in CS as well. There's Black Wings, as well as Hispanic divisions within Rewriting the Code. It's a woman support organization, and they're very active on Facebook, and you can get referrals, you can get, like, you know, like career fairs if you pay a little bit, only like $15. I went last fall and it was pretty okay. I just think this is a great community if you want to be able to, you know, like, women instead, and, you know, across campuses as well. The membership is free, and I think you just get to join the Facebook group. And I highly recommend if you want to, you know, go on further in your career with more women. Okay, so let's go to our warm-up question. We're going to be opening a breakout rooms, breakout rooms. And then here is the warm-up question. So obviously you're not going to be able to see this once you go into breakout rooms, but just know that you have the slides, and we can paste the slides again. I think it's right there. Yeah, the slides are right there, and I would do the warm-up question with your classmates, your fellow peers, and also think about what you should be saying and how you be presenting this information as if you were talking to an interviewer. Be as concise and be as concise as you want to, but just like convey yourself in a way you think is most appropriate and makes the other interviewer think that you understand the question. And so basically, what would you do if you were talking to an interviewer one-on-one? So yeah. Can we put them in breakout rooms? Okay. So this is a online interactive whiteboarding that we'll be using. It's called Vibe. So most likely you'll just be viewing it from, you know, either through my screen, or I guess you could go on the website for afterwards. So looks good. Oh, what? Okay. Why is it not writing? Oh my God. Okay, practice question 1. So I hope all of you guys had, oh wow, that's really ugly. I hope all of you guys had insightful conversation. So we'll be discussing how to approach a question like this, you know, if you were being interviewed. So right after this question and after these slides, we'll be going over how to, like, what the steps are for you to prepare, or like walk through a question. So first of all, we will want to repeat the question in my own words. So right here we can see, like, okay, we want to write a program with we want to write a program that takes an array and basically moves all of the zeros of the array to the front of the array while retaining order. So that would be what I would say to the interviewer. I'll be like, okay, I'll repeat this question like what I just said, and I'll be like, this is the input and this is what the output should be. I'll always ask and check if there's assumptions. So I can be like, oh, if there's an empty array, what should we do? Should we return 0 or should we return an error? You know, how to handle that. So, or if we have, like, you know, non-zero, or I guess non-numeric characters, what should we do? So these are all good questions to ask. And, you know, sometimes the interviewer would just be like, okay, well, you don't have to worry about that. All of the input's going to be valid. And that's just something that you should, you know, demonstrate to the interviewer, that you're trying to handle these, not edge cases, but these particular inputs that you think could be, like, I guess, could potentially interrupt your solution. Okay, so we're also going, as you're coding up your solution and doing pseudocode, I'd also talk out, examples. So the input here, as you can see, it's relatively simple, 12, 0, 1 through 0. You can give another input if you want. You can be like, okay, well, I have 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 0. And then you can just be like, well, okay, the output should be, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. Obviously, this is a lot more of a trivial example, but once you get to, your leetcode mediums and your leetcode hards, or even your leetcode easies, you'll find that, showcasing your answers through a diagram is a good visualization. Okay, so now we're going to actually brainstorm a solution. So most of the times you can whiteboard and you could try to write some pseudocode before you end up actually drawing up your actual solution. And just know that most of the times during a technical review, they won't actually run your code. So this is different from online assessments where they'll actually be judging your score and your time complexity, yada, yada, yada. But during a technical interview, you most likely will not be running your code through an IDE. So let's get started. Okay, so when I look at this question, I think like, okay, well, I have to maintain order. How do I maintain order? Do I have to do this? I'm thinking, space complexity, which is something you guys haven't learned yet, but basically, should I create another array in order to do this? And you can ask your interviewer as well, like, oh, what optimizations would you like me to consider? They could be like, okay, can you do this without creating an additional copy of the array? Or they can be like, oh, we don't really care. You can just do whatever as fast as you think. Okay, that's all some things that you should be, what's it called? Oh, you should be considering. So time and space complexity, which is something we'll be going over. Okay, sorry for blabbering, but we'll get on to it. So first of all, I'm going to, name our function. So name it something nice. Don't name it like just funk, don't name it something insightful. So we can just say that this is move zeros. I cannot spell. How about that? Okay, this is not void. I don't know why it returned void. We should be returning a int array. Okay, be returning, or you can just pass it in. Whatever. Okay. So our input, we can just say this is a int array. Just say input. We're also going to pass in the size of the array as well, right? So that's going to be our function. And let's get started. So also be sure to name your variables something, not just IJK, unless it's in a for loop and it's pretty deterministic, but if you just define a random variable in the front, they're like, I don't know what the hell this variable is. They'll be a little confused and maybe dock you some points off for not explaining yourself too well. Okay, so as I said before, we're going to be considering edge cases. So if this is less than, one element, I don't really want to deal with it. So we're just going to return if it's just one element, right? So we're going to do if n less than 1, sounds good? Okay. So this is just returning the array if the indices are there's less than or equal to 1. Sorry, it's only one element. I don't know why I said 1. Okay. So this gets me thinking. I can do this, like I said before, I can do this in place or I can do this not in place. And I think since you guys are just starting out, I feel like maybe doing it not in place would be more intuitive. Okay, so the easiest thing I'm going to do is like, okay, well, I can just write a for loop. So I'm going to, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be counting the number of zeros and basically setting them, the indices in the beginning to 0 if I see them. Wait, it's not responding. Why is it not responding? shoot. Technical technical difficulties. God dang it. Okay. Give me 1 second. Oh, should I just talk it out instead of writing it? Should we use vectors or arrays? It really depends. Whatever you want and whatever the problem is giving you. Oh, sorry, thinking right. What the hell? Oh. Okay. Now let me exit out the app. Should we stop recording just because I am having the interruption? Okay, let me just. Okay, I think I already answered Eric's question, so I will not be doing it again. Sorry. Yes, please. Okay, hopefully it works. My God, I am sorry. So we're going to be first copying over the zeros. In this array into a different array. So I want to, oh, sorry, this is, so for me, I'm going to be creating a different array with the same size. So I'll just call this int output array. And I'll just, also the size would be n because we're going to be returning the same size. And then we're going to copy over the number of zeros we see. Int I equals 0, I less than n, I plus plus. Very standard for loop. We're going to be looping over just to see how many zeros we have. If the input array, I don't know where I put the party up though. If input array of I is equal to 0, then we also want to put a 0 in the beginning of, the specific array. Okay, sorry, I did not define a different temp variable. So this second temp variable I'm going to be defining is the current position of the new array. So we'll just call it position. This will not be reset when we leave the for loop because we want to be keeping track of the order of the output array and therefore the input array. Therefore, when the pointer moves, not pointer, but when the indice moves, we're going to be keeping track of the indices of the zeros. So we're going to say output of position is equal to 0. And we're going to do position equals plus equals to 1 because we're going to move it up 1. And then afterwards, we're going to create another for loop. And we're going to be like, okay, well, now we're going to copy over all of our non-zeros. So again, int I equals 0, I less than n, I plus plus. And what I'm doing here, as I just mentioned, is that I'm going to be copying over all of, oh, why is it not writing again? Oh my God, okay. And the non-zeros again. So if input is not equal to 0, we're going to be setting that. Oh my God. This is supposed to be semicolon. Okay, and now we're going to be returning our output. Does this make sense? So in this case, I would be going over some test cases. So we can go over 12, 0, 1, 0, 1 through 0. So as you can see here, I will be, when I run through our first for loop, I'm going to see my second 0 at the first indice. I'm going to see position is equal to 1 now. And then we're going to basically move the position vector. Okay, I'll draw a picture as well. So this is my output. This is where P is right initially. This is going to be our input, which is 12, 0, 1, 3, 0. Wow, my 12 looks like alien. Okay. 12 is not 0, so the first one we're going to put is 0 here. We're going to position equals position plus 1. So now we're going to move the position to Z to 1. Scratch that out. We see another 0 when we loop to 5 in our for loop. So then that's going to be a 0 here. We keep our position when we the next for loop. As you can see here, now position will be equal to 2 because we looped it through. And then now when we copy over, we'll be doing 12, 1, 3. And that makes sense. Okay, I would definitely, give another test case or two. Should we initialize position with 0? Wow, great catch. I didn't do that. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure C++ defaults to 0, but it's also good to do it explicitly. And it's good. Yeah, don't be like me and not name it explicitly. Okay. So if I were someone, if I were you guys, I would definitely code this out and give some test cases like I just did, more than one probably, and preferably something that they didn't go through as well. Okay, let's get going. Any questions? Can we launch the poll and see how difficult this question was? Does the poll not work? Is it not working because it's inactive? Like it says there's 2 hosts, or? Okay, regardless, we can go on. There's technical difficulties. Okay, so let's go over some big O. Oh, wait, I should have went over big O, but as you can see here on my screen, so what would be a big O here? I have one for loop, and we can go over this a little bit later, but basically this will be O of n, because we will be scaling with the size of our input. And we can go over this a little bit later, but after this slide, obviously. So what is constant runtime? Constant runtime is runtime that does not scale with input. As you can see from my code here, this is in Python. I take in an input, but my for loop only runs 5 times. And I always know it will run 5 times and does not scale regardless of my input. Therefore, in this case, my runtime would be O of 1 because it is static and I know what it's going to be like. Does that make sense? Okay. But what is linear? So linear will grow proportionally with the size of our input. So as you can see here and in the previous question, oh shoot. Still moving. Oopsie daisies. Thank you for telling me. Okay. Sorry for these dumb technical difficulties I keep running into. So what is linear? So from the vibe, Canvas can see I'm running one for loop, scaling with the size of the input, which is n. That is just a predefined array size that we're going to be passing in. And in this function that we see here in Python, I am taking the length of the input, which is the size of the input, and indexing over and printing however many times hello CS32 interview track, how many ever times input is, how big it is. So intuitively, I would say if a for loop runs, if you do the range between, 0 to n, that's always worst case going to be n. We're always going to have to think of the worst case. Like you could break out early if you do an if statement within the for loop, but just know that we're always thinking worst case when we think of big O. That's what the bound is. Yes. What if you have quadratic? Okay, well, this is not as bad as you think it is, because runtime quadratic is pretty, polynomial time is still good. Hands came with me. So what would you see quadratic time be? You would just see, most of the times it would be double for loops. So we're going to be assuming this n by n array, n by n's will be a 2D array. We're going to take the length and we're going to iterate through it one by one. So this will run n times n, so that's n squared. That's going to be our runtime because the worst case scenario, regardless, in our case, in this particular function, it will be running n times n. And sometimes you could break out early, but this is definitely not the case. Okay, So this will give you hopefully a little bit of a grasp on what you'll be taught later after your midterm in CS32. But this is just giving like, you know, a slight taste of what you should be thinking of in an interview. You should be talking about your time and space complexity. So I don't have the vibe canvas open on the slides right now, but I'm just going to talk it through. My time complexity was O of n because all of my for loops are not together. So I didn't have any of double stacked for loops, which is in the case here. They're all separate from each other. And in the case we would do like, you know, simple math, it'd be like O of n plus n plus n, right? And actually, there's only 2n. So O of n plus n, and that's O of 2n. But most of the times that still scales with n. Therefore, we say the we say the sorry, I just got really dazed. We say the runtime complexity is O of n. Okay, so let's go over, this is the review I should have said. So we're going to find an expression for a number of operations, and we're going to drop the non-dominant terms. So in this case, my for loops were pretty simple, but I could have a for loop within a for loop, or I can have, you know, like a while will break out earlier. So in this case, you would always take the dominant term because that's going to grow the fastest. As you can see from the example here, we have 2n squared plus 4n plus 4. We know the n squared is going to take off. Therefore, we're going to say the runtime complexity is bound by n squared. Does that make sense? Obviously, ignore coefficients like I said before. And if you want to be specific, you can always include coefficients, but be sure that you know what you're talking about when you're talking to your interviewer. These are just going to be some of the runtime complexities you'll be seeing throughout the course of n polynomial time, of what's it called? We've got factorial time, and then 2 of n is going to be slower than n squared, which is going to be slower than n log n, then n, and then the fastest we're going to have is constant, which is not very common at all. Okay, so this is what you'll be learning in CS32, and these are just some of the operations you'll be doing. So insertion, access, deletion. You don't have to know what this is right now, and you'll for sure know it by the end of the course. But this is just, you know, hopefully, I guess like a not a refresher, because it's not, you guys don't know anymore. But I'm sure you guys learned singly linked list already and have started learning about stacks and arrays. So as you can see here, you know, access would be O of n, but then if we insert, it's just only O of 1, which is, you know, sometimes helpful. You'll be learning sorting algorithms later too. Don't worry about this right now, but this is just like, if you already know this, better. If you don't know this, you will have to know this for a lot of the LeetCode questions. And yeah, these are just important. So I wanted you guys to, you know, write down what your approach was during your technical interview. And I hope, you know, these steps are somewhat similar to what you try to do in the breakout rooms. It's incredibly important to communicate effectively, right? And I don't think I was able to, you know, because of the technical interview hiccups that I did today. And I sounded a little, you know, like frantic. Just know that you should not be like me. You should not be frantic. You should always be like, oh yeah, I got this in the bag. Got to be confident in how you're talking. Don't be like me today. And always present your solution in a way that you're confident in. So don't ask, I would refrain from asking too many, oh, is this right? Oh, am I doing this correctly? You know, you should be confident in how you're presenting your solution, and the interviewer would just be like, okay, you can just walk me through, right? It's not going to be, they're there to judge you as a problem solver. They can give you hints, but they're I guess I would say they're not on your side per se, and they're still testing you. So when I went over our code from the warm-up question, I did say that, you know, repeat the question, check assumptions, use examples, and, you know, write your code and test your code. So these are all steps that you should be taking and keeping to account. Once you do this a little bit more, you'll just get the hang of it and it'll come naturally. if you don't get it naturally, you can always have this on the side of your desktop and just like, paste it and see what you need to be going through when you go through an interview. Any questions? No questions. Great. So now we'll be, just going through some practice questions. And don't worry, you're not forced to breakout rooms this time. We'll just be going over some questions you might see, just to get you like a tease. So problem 1. Think about this and try to think about it in the way that I just presented. So obviously use this. Check the slides yourself. I don't think I can put 2 slides at once. We'll give you a minute to think and then we'll start trying the solution. Obviously you can talk to your buddies if you want, get their contact information, send them a Instagram DM. Sorry, I'm just like rambling. I think we can just start coding the solution just because we're running out of time.
Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the problem. So anyone have any ideas? Oh, hold on. Okay, that is, I'm gonna answer Lorenzo first. That is, you're on track, but then that wouldn't necessarily be correct since, say, I have 6 and yours would return true, but it's not the power of 2. Zihan, I don't know if that's your name quickly, if not, correct me. That would also be okay, but that might be a bit forward as I think most of you haven't talked about it yet. Anna, I can share my screen because you're sharing right now. Can you go to the, oh, okay. Wait, hold on.
I got it if you want.
Okay, please do it. Okay, can you go to the first one?
Yes.
Slide 1. Okay. So there are 2 approaches to this. We can talk about the easier version first, and then we can talk about the harder one. Well, easier as in has a bigger big O. So then the first thing that I thought of is if we write, oh, let me just type, my handwriting is horrible. So we can have a condition first. So if, say, our input is a number, let's call that n, and our output would be a Boolean true or false. Okay. So the first thing that we can check is if it's smaller than 1, because if it is, we can just return false. If it's not, then we can iterate through the whole thing, and hold on, it's not working. Okay, I'll just be talking since it's not working right now. So if n is bigger than 1, then I can keep using Lorenzo's idea. So then I can use the percentage sign to see if it's less than, if it can be divided by 3. If it's solved, then I can say n is equal to 3, n is equal to n divided by 3, and just keep iterating through the loop. And if at some point n is bigger than 1 but cannot be divided by 3, then I can just return false, because that means that n has other numbers in it that is not 3. Another approach that we can use is that since it's given that it's an integer, we know that integers has the first solution that I talked about has a big O of n, so we're iterating through n, right? So then it depends on how big n is. And then the second solution that I thought of is that since we're given the restriction that n is an integer, then we can look up the biggest number that n can be. So then the greatest power of 2, which is like 2 to the 31st or 32nd, I think. And then if we divide that by n, and if n is equal, if n is greater than 0, then we can return true. If not, we can just return false. And that method has a O of 1, since we're just doing a division. Yeah, it's not. Oh, so it works right now. Let me just type my solution up. It doesn't work anymore. Okay, I'll share my solution later. Just hang on tight. Okay, so I'm reading the comments right now. So Matthew, you got it right. You, Shane. Okay, you have a I++ out of nowhere. Oh, okay. Okay, that would work. And Noah, you also got it right. Okay, I think we can move on to the second question.
All right, cool. So this is gonna be the second question. So I guess I'm gonna have to go through this really quickly because we don't have too much time left. But this is the second problem. Given a non-empty array of integers, every element appears 2 times except for 1. Find the value of that one element. And so given an input of an array of 1, 1, 3, 4, 3, our output is 4. Because while the value 1 and the value 3 both appear twice, the value 4 only appears once. So we want to return that 4. So I'm actually going to quickly go down kind of like the process that I would take when trying to solve this problem. So the first thing you would do is, okay. The first thing you would do here is you would like make sure you understand the problem. So like repeat the problem and clarify the input, like can there be negative integers, how many integers, like what's the around the bound of how many integers in the array? Can there be, okay, there can't be an empty array, so it's a non-empty array. Can it appear more than 2 times, or is it only 2 times in 1 time? Will there always be a solution? So these are kind of like some questions that like you want to make sure that you understand before you approach the problem, because there's a couple of pitfalls you can fall under. And so the next step I would take is trying to come up with like a rough pseudocode solution. And so the idea is that like the first thing that comes to mind would be the brute force solution, right? So like the first thing that would come to mind would be I don't know if you if you want to switch to the whiteboard, or should I just like explain over this since we don't have too much time? Any thoughts? No? Okay, let's use the whiteboard here. So the first thing that comes to mind, so let's say we have this array. If we want to find the value 4 that only appears once, the first thing that comes to mind is like brute forcing, right? So that would be basically for each different value that we encounter, we want to check the rest of the array to see if that value also appears, right? And that's like the first thing you think of, but it's also very inefficient, right? Because at worst, like you're going to have to check through every single element for each element. So you'll be like a quadratic time complexity, so O of n squared. And so you might like propose this solution to the recruiter or the interviewer, and they might give you hints, or like you might think of the like a good solution on your own. And so the actual like more efficient way to do this is you can think of a more fundamental property of a mathematical operation. So I don't know if you guys have heard of XOR. But the idea of this operation is that it's a bitwise operation, but you can apply it to integers as well, since integers are just kind of like collections of bits. And the idea is if you XOR two of the same bits together, so if you XOR 0 and 0 together, you're going to get 1. And if you XOR, oh, sorry, wait, is this how XOR works? XOR this. Okay, yeah, so this is actually going to be 0. And then if you XOR 0 and 1 together, you're going to get 1. And if you XOR 0 and 1 together, you're going to get 1. But then if you XOR 1 and 1 together, you're going to get 0. So if you XOR two of the same bits together, you're going to get the 0 bit. But if you XOR two of different bits together, you're going to get the 1 bit. And so a nice property of XOR is that if you XOR, right, so if you XOR, like it's cumulative, right? So if you XOR a bunch of different bits together, it's going to kind of like accumulate in the sense of your uniqueness operation, right? So let's say you XOR like 0, 0, 1, 0, and 1 together. So if you XOR 0 and 0, you're going to get 0. And then you XOR that with 1. So then you're going to get 1. And then you XOR that 1 with 0. So you're going to get 1 again. And then you're going to XOR that with 1, and you're going to get 0. And so the key property here is that it'll actually return the even bit. So like if there's an even number of 0 bits, it'll return 0. And if there's a, odd. And if there's like an odd number of bits, is that, I'm going way too quickly here, but the essential idea is that if you XOR two of the same numbers together, the operation cancels out. So the idea is that if you XOR 1 and 1 together, you'll get, basically you'll get 0, but then if you XOR 0 and any other number together, you'll get that other number. And so the core idea to the efficient way to solve this problem is to simply XOR all of the numbers together. So like, for example, if you XOR 1 and 1 together, you can get 0. But then if you XOR 0 and 3 together, you can get 3. If you XOR 3 and 4 together, you're going to get some like unknown value, but that doesn't matter because it's cumulative. So if you XOR that unknown value together with 3, the 2 3s are going to cancel out and you actually get 4 in the end. So I know I explained that really poorly because I really rushed through that. But if you were to like code this down, it would look something like, oops. It would look something like this. Here we go. So let's say you wanted to return the only one, and you're given a vector of numbers. And so what you can do is actually, I think the standard library, this is one of the kind of library tricks that you'll pick up if you use C++ a lot, is that there's a standard library function that kind of does the operation of a for loop as well as a function applied to one value of the for loop, so one element of the array and the next element of the array. So this is kind of like doing a for loop manually while keeping track of which index you are looping over and then keep track of the index plus 1. And so this is just like a standard library way of doing things. That's very like modern C++. So there's a method called like accumulate, where you simply pass in the beginning iterator and the ending iterator, and then your starting value of your accumulator, as well as a C++ lambda. Don't fret too much about what this is. Imagine this as like a modular function that you can kind of apply anywhere. So talking about the index at which you're looking at the element, as well as the index after it. And so what you actually want to do is you want to return the first value XOR the second value. And so what you actually want to do is you can just directly return this accumulated value. And congrats, you've solved that problem using C++ standard library and using the mathematical properties of XOR.
So I'm sorry to cut you off, Bill, but
Wait, I don't think you saw the the text box.
I don't.
think you
Yeah.
scroll up.
Oh, it's up here. Okay, sorry. Sorry, guys. I was like confused. I was like, I kept on like doing this, and I was like, where the hell is he writing? Okay, so does this make sense?
Yeah, I think that went a bit too fast for that to make sense.
Yeah.
But that being said, I hope that made a little bit of sense. I did think I went a bit too.
So unfortunately, we don't have much time, but I would love to finish our presentation. Obviously, if you check out our slides, there's additional practice, and then the number on the first column is going to be the leetcode number. So if you just look up leetcode 206, it will take you to reverse linked lists. And these are stuff that you already should know because you guys went over linked list week 1. Here's a good practicing module if you like that. Once again, this is our Discord and calendar. So if you want to, practice your skills and then talk to people in the Discord and, get some mock interview times with each other, it'd be a great place to start. So check out our slides and come into our Discord if you want. We would love it if you were able to fill out this form. I know there was a little bit of a hiccup And I'm sorry, we will try to make that not happen again. Vibe is being weird, so we might look into a different platform. We're launching a poll right now to see if you would prefer us typing up a solution in Replit, or would you like Vibe in the future? So if Arjun could type it up, that'd be great. I mean, not type it up, but I guess open the poll. Typing in a TXT file, maybe. Okay, yeah, we could do that. Okay, sounds good. Does the poll not work? But regardless, we should stop recording, and we would love to take